The preferential trade under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, Guided Trade Initiative, GTI, was launched today in Lagos. An initiative expected to boost trade relations with other African countries and increase the country's economic growth. Now, according to an earlier release, the launch, as hosted by the National Coordinator, Nigeria AfCFTA Coordination Office, Olusegun Awolowo. It is to demonstrate and showcase Nigeria's trading under the AfCFTA and that businesses in Africa can take advantage of the GTI to trade, as well as the processes through which the AfCFTA can be effectively engaged. Recall Nigeria signed the agreement on July 7, 2019, becoming the 34th state party to do so. There is high hopes that Nigeria's readiness and preparedness for preferential trading under the AfCFTA preferential trading regime would immensely contribute to repositioning the continental market as a global trade market and rallying point. There seem to be a whole lot of expectations. Let's get some informed views on this as we move the launch and the spread of the AfCFTA. My guest is Bamidele Ayemibo. He is the lead consultant, 3T Impex Consulting. He joins us from here virtually. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, let's start with basic understanding, because it took me a minute to actually get what it was. For the sake of our viewer who might be unaware, please explain the preferential trade under the AfCFTA Guided Trade Initiative, GTI. What does it mean, and the significance of Nigeria's launch?
All right, so the preferential trade basically talking about the fact that not everybody will be able to trade. Some countries are preferred to the other, some products are preferred to the other, and some businesses are preferred to the other. And the reason is because this is a game that has rule between countries to be able to trade together. And if there's no rule, of course, it will defy the whole reason why. There won't be, that means anybody, a Chinese company, a Japanese company, an Indian company, an American company can just bring their product into Ghana, ship it into Nigeria, and say this product is a product eligible under the AfCFTA. Preferential basically means not every product and every country will be eligible to trade. Those that are eligible in this case for country are those that are within the African continent who have signed the agreement and have ratified, and then they now have businesses who are shipping under this agreement, and their product also have been able to satisfy the rule of origin. The rule of origin. Only originating product will be able to trade freely under this agreement. Originating product basically means a product is originating from the countries that have signed this agreement. Meaning, it's either the product has a substantial value, a substantial raw material sourced within the region, or value addition done to a level, or processing done to a level, such that at the end of the day, it's creating job and opportunity for growth in the economy of the countries.
How will this initiative impact specifically Nigeria's trade relationships with other African countries?
It is expected that this should lead to growth of trade. It's interesting that EU have a population of less than 500 million if you take away Brexit, and they are controlling about 33% of trade in the world, more than 30% of trade in the world. But about 70% of EU trade is intra-EU trade, and they control a third of global trade. But if you flip it to Africa, African population is about 1.3 billion, almost times 3 EU. But African contribution to trade is about 2.5%. EU, 500 million people, less than 500 million people. 33%. Africa, 1.3 billion people. just about 2.5%. But intra-African trade is less than 20%. Some will even say it's 14, 15, 16, or 17% max. Whereas intra-EU trade is about 70%. Because of the lot of trade happening within the EU, it grows the trade of the EU, making EU to be a major force to reckon with as far as global trade is concerned. That's exactly what we're expected to see in Africa. If now I can source my raw material from Africa as an importer, I can source my raw material from Africa, I can also sell into Africa such that my product is expected to be more competitive. So for example, if I'm shipping a product into Uganda, Uganda charge 30% duty on that product. If a Chinese company is sending it into Uganda, 30%. If I'm sending to Uganda, 30%. But now, because of preferential treatment, as a result of this agreement, and speaking of this agreement, if this product are on the tariff elimination, because tariff elimination is on 90%, 7% progressively received and 3% will not be removed. That means I can be shipping to this country duty-free. I'm saving about 30% compared to my counterpart in China. That's expected to increase intra-African trade. And of course, you know what trade does? It increases, it reduces poverty because it creates jobs, thereby reducing poverty, reducing inequality, and also reducing hunger on the continent.
Sounds very beautiful the way you present it, but again, our challenge has always been implementation of these great ideas. How, in your view, would this initiative address Nigeria's trade challenges, such as tariffs and non-tariff barriers?
The program also is actually expected to address non-tariff barriers. You know, there's something interesting about this. I must commend those, the Africans that are putting this together, and a number of initiatives. For example, this is a guided trade initiative, GTI. So it's a test or trial shipment to check the possibility of doing this trade and ensuring it goes through Nigerian regulation and, in this case, Kenya, Egypt, Cameroon regulation, and we are able to complete the transaction, see the bottleneck, and address the bottleneck before more people come on board. That's one of the initiatives. But there's another initiative to be able to address what you're talking about, which is the issue of non-tariff barrier. Because we've had history as African, we've had history whereby we have an agreement in West Africa in which we sign to do business together, but some people will do something else. Some people, some other countries within Africa, Nigerians ship goods to those countries, but at the border, there are bottlenecks, there are delays. Sometimes you even pay duty when you're not supposed to pay duty, even though you have a document that shows you are not supposed to pay duty. Now, these are the things that happen in all these places. Now, this program, there's an initiative under this program called the AfCFTA online mechanism for reporting, monitoring, and eliminating non-tariff barrier. The idea is, if I get to border of a country and there is a problem and they are imposing duty on my product, which is also supposed to have duty, I can report it to a central data where everybody will see it, and AfCFTA secretariat will intervene with the government of the country in question to get the issue resolved. The idea is to ensure that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we sign an agreement and we are creating another non-tariff barrier to hinder people or other state parties that want to do business from doing business efficiently and still increasing their costs, even though they have signed an agreement that should be removed.
Talk to us about the potential challenges and obstacles to the implementation of the preferential trade under the agreement GTI.
Number one is information about this program. It's good we're having this conversation today. This conversation needs to be on the front burner for both government agencies spending a lot of money to educate Nigerians and ensure that a lot of businesses that have potential to trade in Africa are even aware of the agreement. I keep referring to ETLS, Equal Trade Liberalization Scheme, a similar agreement in West Africa, over 30 years old, but has not been maximized by many businesses who are supposed to benefit from it in Nigeria. So creating awareness about it, so that people will be aware such exists. the kind of awareness that we have when there's election, that we know all the candidates, frontline candidates, because of the awareness created. We need that kind of awareness, particularly from the government agencies, from the coordinating office of AfCFTA to Ministry of Trade to Nigeria Promotion Council, and of course the media. Number 2 is information, providing information, and this rests solely on the coordinating office. Providing information. So for example, now for me to ship to Kenya, I need a certificate of origin. How do I go about it? How do I apply? What form do I fill? Who do I submit to? When are they going to visit my factory? How soon will it be ready? When am I going to? Those information need to be made available so that everyone is clear as to this exactly is the way I'm going to go. I need to go about getting this certificate because that's what makes me eligible under this agreement. So we need a lot of information out. Information about getting buyers, partnership in the export market, information about documentation requirements and how to get those documents, information about price, information about logistics. We need a lot of information that is made available, and this rests solely on the shoulder of the coordinating office on the AfCFTA.
Okay, so you talked about these are the 2 areas. In fact, it's information. You have to basically
everything is information. Everything is information.
Dissemination and availability, so people know what to do, who to go to, and where to ask questions. To encourage us really to get it right, how will this initiative paint us a picture of how it will enhance Nigeria's participation in regional and global value chain?
That's actually the goal. The goal is to strengthen, grow, build, develop the intracontinental value chain. So, for example, Nigeria is producing a lot of flour products, Nigeria imports a lot of wheat. Now, Nigeria can begin to look at, is there a country in Africa that produced wheat in a competitive manner, such that if we import it duty-free into Nigeria, we'll be more competitive than importing from North and South America. And that also helped an importer in Nigeria. Currently, a lot of importers, in fact, we have a lot of inflation right now that they are called imported inflation, because what is causing that inflation are items imported into Nigeria. Item imported into the economy, because the price of those have not changed, but our own situation and reality has changed because of exchange rate issues, because of devaluation of naira, and this is making this product expensive. Now an importer can now be able to import if he's able to source those products on the African continent, and that's why a businessman who do a lot of importation needs to really think of how they can rework their supply chain, such that they can begin to see, is there countries in Africa where I can get this product? Now that I'm not going to pay duty, maybe I'll be able to get it in duty-free. That means it will be cheaper, probably cheaper than what I will get from other parts of the world. Those are the conditions we need to have, and that's the benefit actually for a typical importer in Nigeria. For the exporter in Nigeria also, it's of immense benefit to an exporter, because if we fix the logistics within Africa, that means I can do more cycle of shipment, because the transit time now is short. I don't want to spend almost a month going to Europe, or almost 2 months going to North America or Asia. Within a week or 2, I can consummate a transaction because I'm shipping to nearby countries. So it has a lot of benefit, both for the importers and the exporter, and of course a lot of revenue for government afterwards.
All right, I want to go back, because sometimes you say the thing that sounds so rosy, there must be something.
No, they are not without challenges.
Yes, because you talked about information, how important a role it has to play. What about other diplomatic arrangement between countries that will enhance intra-continental trade? Do you think that the adoption of the AfCFTA agreement has been widespread enough to facilitate this move that we are currently on?
Oh yes, that's why currently, as of my last check, 54 African countries have signed. As of my last check, 54 African countries have signed and 46 have ratified. I'm sure it will be more than that now. As of my last check, 46 have ratified. That is very, very important. That is extremely important. That shows that Africa is united on this issue. The fact that it's not just 54 signed, 46 ratified, we needed just 22 or 23 to ratify, 46 ratified, that is a very, very important statement by African countries that we are ready to work together on this. And that's why a number of other African countries have begun to start the guided trade initiative, signing and beginning to do shipments. So there's no doubt as to the fact that we want to work together, which is why we signed, and we didn't go just and make it a law in our country and ratify the agreement. However, there is still possible for us to sign and ratify and say our bottleneck, which is why I talked to you about the initiative that will enable a business to report any unfair practices at the border of any country, creating bottleneck and not making this to be able to work as expected. But we now have to look back and check, which is the issue I'm talking about. The issue we need to deal with is readiness of Nigerian businesses to be able to take advantage, not just of AfCFTA. We have the same issue with ETLS, we have the same issue with AGOA, trading with the US, and the same issue have not been solved as far as trading on the African continent is concerned. So that should be our concern and worry. The fact that we need to look inward and say, okay, how do we take advantage of this? This is a big opportunity. People are going to look at Nigeria. This is a market to be. I mean, over 200 million people. This is a market everybody wants to trade with. The question is Nigeria also going to be able to take advantage of that in other markets, particularly engaging a lot of businesses, SME and the like? Is it just going to be by the big multinationals or foreign companies who are in Nigeria that are able to, or domestic, I mean, indigenous businesses being able to take advantage of it? So I think we should be looking at the issue of export readiness for Nigerian businesses to be able to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Talking about readiness, some would suggest that there has to be some adjustments, not just in Nigeria, but other countries. But since it's Nigeria's launch, I want you to talk about how the preferential trade under the AfCFTA GTI would have on the country's fiscal policy or long-term revenue generation.
Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt about the fact that in the short term, in fact, Manufacturing of Nigeria did a survey, and they found out that this agreement is going to have some implication on Nigeria, particularly in revenue generation for government in the short term. But the research also revealed that in the long term, we are better off. So we expect that in the short term, there'll be a decline in government revenue because, of course, there are a number of products that are coming to Nigeria duty-free from within the African continent. Also, we expect a decline in government revenue. We expect a decline in balance of trade with Africa as imports will grow faster than exports. But this will partially be offset by the rise in price of export due to rising demand. We expect to see a rising demand in export of Nigeria over time. Of course, we expect also a significant increase in import. And this is expected to significantly, to be across different manufacturing sectors. As a matter of fact, MAN confirmed that this will cut across pulp and paper, printing, publishing, basic metal and steel, textile, apparel, footwear, and chemical. So it's going to affect a number of sectors in the short term. But it's expected that in the long term, we will be better off at the end of the day. Which was why, if you remember, when this agreement was signed in Rwanda, Nigeria did not sign. That date you announced that we signed a year after in Niger Republic, after the last administration set a committee that went around the country to, number one, educate Nigeria on the safeguard and what benefit will be. And of course, a number of other research were done, and there was conclusion that, look, it's something we need to be part of, but that needs to be done based on something the government also is expected to do as a support to help manufacturers to take advantage of this agreement.
What's your candid assessment of private sector buy-in to this preferential trade?
No, I mean, like I said, MAN was against it initially until that stakeholder engagement was done and they eventually accepted it. The issue is that we can't say we are not going to be part of this kind of agreement because we need to grow trade. And the interesting thing, we can do a lot within Africa, even though a good amount of our trade go out of Africa. Look at what I discovered about how this will benefit Nigeria. Nigeria will not be able to export a lot of commodities to Africa. Maybe we can do crude. But a number of other commodities, we won't be able to do it to Africa because a number of other African countries are probably worse than Nigeria in terms of production capacity. But they will only buy value-added manufactured goods, which will have created jobs back at home. If you go and check current data of what Nigeria exports to Niger and Chad and North African countries, or to West Africa or Central African countries, they are all 90%, more than 90%, apart from crude, manufactured goods, value-added goods, from slippers to insecticide to different kind of products that are manufactured goods, food items, noodles and the like, manufactured goods, food products that you and I use from day to day are being exported every day, manufactured in Nigeria. Now that we have an agreement that makes those to enter those countries duty-free, we can now begin to do more of it, not just West Africa now, but to Central Africa, to Southern Africa. Now, if we're able to grow that volume, the impact back at home is increased job opportunity, because those businesses are expected to increase their capacity and grow and expand, which is why I come back again to the issue of export readiness. So what the private sector should be looking at is, what has hindered us from growing export all this while? Can we begin to deal with it? I'm talking about on the part of the private sector. Government definitely have a lot to do in terms of infrastructure, in terms of road, a lot that government have to do. But a lot also that individual business have to do to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. So I think it's unanimous among private sector that this is good for us, particularly on the export side.
I think that's heartwarming, really, because rarely do you hear a complete agreement with any of government's initiative. But this is not just about Nigeria now. It's a continent-wide situation. As we wrap up, I want you to speak on two, it's one question, but they're in two parts. Broadly speaking, what does the future look like with a robust implementation of the AfCFTA for Africa? And the important question is, from all the indices available to you, can we do it? I would say, can we do it? Yes and no. Yes, if we do what we need to do. No, if we go business as usual. So today now there have been a launch. We are very good with launching. Make all the noise, do all the fanfare. After that, everybody go back to sleep. Nothing is being done afterwards. That should not happen for this. If that happens for this, we will not see the result. In fact, that dumping ground we talk about might become what happened, that everybody is shipping to us, but we are not able to do a lot outside. Now, but I say a lot, if we take this serious and do what we need to do, which the signing in Africa has communicated, which the ratification up to 46 countries and more in Africa have communicated, then I see a bigger, better, and greater Africa. I just gave you a statistics about how these are better than a lot of Europeans. And why they don't joke with trade. They do a lot. In fact, currently, between China and Europe and EU, they are having some issues. I mean, it is for that as far as trade is concerned. Why? Because they want to guard and protect their business, the trade within the territory jealously, so that nobody come and dump. In which case, we are selling product in our territory at a price cheaper than your cost of production to be able to take out our own businesses and dominate the market. They don't want that to happen, and they are doing everything to ensure that they don't allow that to happen. That's exactly what I expected to see. I'm expecting to see in Africa. There's a lot of projection about how much jobs that can be generated, how much billions of dollars in trade that will happen, the kind of intracontinental value chain. So many projections as to the benefit of this, and I believe it is possible. We can make it happen, but we need to do our part. I'm taking the part that we can make it happen. Optimism is the goal here with the work that is required being put in. Thank you very much, Bamidele, as always, for your kind time, for spending your time with us and sharing the insights you've provided.
Thank you very much for having me, and bye-bye.